So get out wherever you were taking your notes yesterday. Again, if you were using a Google Doc, you're just going to go right on that same Google Doc and keep going. Because on Friday, you're only going to turn in one file. If you turn in multiple files, I'm going to just send it back to you ungraded. So get out your Google Doc or your notebook so we can get started on our notes. Okay, so section 2 in chapter 1 is the economy in your post-secondary education. All right, so again, you do not need to write down these learning objectives. The first one is to describe how the economy can affect prices and incomes. Then we're going to discuss the cost and options for higher education and post-secondary training, and then explain how to pay for college and other education programs. All right, so the economy. So understanding the state of the economy will help you make better financial decisions. The definition of economy from your book is all of the activities related to making and distributing goods and services in a geographical area or region.
Did you say we write the economy one?
Yes. You're going to want to write all definitions. You do not need to write what's down there in red. A market economy is an economy based on the laws of supply and demand, which determine prices. So supply is the quantity of goods and services that producers are willing and able to provide. And demand is the willingness and ability of consumers to buy goods and services. So how much are they making? That's the supply. And demand, how much are we as consumers asking for those things?
You're posting this on Classroom, right?
It's already posted in Classroom.
Okay.
It's on. It's the same PowerPoint from yesterday. It's on the agenda for the week.
Thank you.
So again, you don't need to write that in red, but it says if you choose to work in a career field that is growing and in a job that's in demand, you have a better chance of earning a good income.
Quick question: Will you be recording this?
I think I am now. Yes, it's recording.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I want to see it for later use.
Okay. So the economy goes through stages in the business cycle. The business cycle is the alternating periods of growth and decline in the economy. So yes, if you're handwriting your notes, I would recommend that you kind of try to sketch this. If you're typing your notes, you can cut and paste the picture or copy and paste it. You can kind of draw it with making your own little graph. So the business cycle, we have our peak and then we go through decline. Oops, sorry. Which is when we're in a recession and we hit the bottom there, the trough. And so that's an economic contraction going down there. And then the economic expansion is when we're recovering. If the peak is higher than the previous peak, that is where we have growth. So again, from one peak, you can see that horizontal line there. Anything above the previous peak is growth. Every peak doesn't go higher than the previous one. Sometimes they go lower. And we don't really know when we're at the trough until we start going back up and our economy starts recovering. So again, you don't have to write this down. A lot of the stuff in red, I'll kind of let you know. You can write it down, but it's the same thing that was pretty much in the other slide, just worded a little bit differently. I probably could have deleted this slide. If the economy and your career field are growing, you will likely be able to earn a good income and receive pay raises and bonuses. So when you're in something that's growing, they're going to need to be paying people more because the demand will be higher. So you have more of that option for, or chance, I shouldn't say option, more likely to receive raises and bonuses. All right, kind of shifting gears a little bit. So what are the costs of education? So this is like if you're going, choosing to take online classes, going to a junior college, going to a four-year college. So tuition is the expense paid by students for the instruction at a school. All of those are going to have tuition. Trade schools will have tuition. Other costs that aren't always thought about are housing, books and supplies, different fees, and then living expenses, your food, your clothing, your transportation. You know, if you're just going to a junior college and living at home, you don't have most of these expenses. Your parents may likely still pay for your housing, your food, possibly clothing, transportation. But if you're out on your own, these are all things you have to think of when you're in college. And some of you have parents that might be willing and able to help, and others maybe not. So you're going to have to figure out how to pay for it, which we'll talk about in just a few slides. Okay, so college costs vary by type of college and by the region. So this just kind of shows, it breaks it into the West, Midwest, Southwest, South, Middle States, and New England. And you can see the cost of schools. So they do a public 2-year, like your junior college, a public 4-year, and then a private 4-year. So here in the West, it says a public 2-year is about $23.50, where a public 4-year is almost $21,000, and then $39,000 for a private. You can see some of these areas cost more. The West is one of the lower ones. I guess it's kind of right there in the middle. The middle states cost and New England costs more. But we know California tends to be higher than average, higher than most of the other states. So California is clumped with all these other states in the West. And so ours tends to be above those averages there. Just keep in mind. But if you're thinking about going to college out of state, gives you kind of just a very, very vague picture. So we hopefully already know all of these. If you already know all of these, you don't have to necessarily write them down. But you know, you can get your bachelor's degree at a 4-year college or university. You can get your associate's degree at a 2-year community college. You can go to a career or technical skill school. You can go to the military, or you can get an apprenticeship. Apprenticeship is that on-the-job training. Okay, so real quick. All right. Financial aid. So how will you pay for your education and training? So those vocational and trade schools still have to be paid for with their so financial aid is money you receive from an outside source to help pay for education. So financial aid may come via the federal government. So FAFSA that I was asking about is the free application for federal student aid. So the application is free to apply to FAFSA. And it's the key that unlocks many of your financial aid options. So I think that first sentence there is the definition from your book. Money received from an outside source to help pay for education. All right, we have one more slide and then we are just going to watch one of these videos today. So we'll go a little bit over 1:30. So student loans. A subsidized student loan is a loan on which the student pays no interest until he or she is graduated or is no longer in school. So if you're going to take out student loans, you want subsidized loans. So just a very broad example, say you took out a $5,000 subsidized loan your freshman year in college. After you graduate, you still only owe $5,000. An unsubsidized loan, student loan, starts charging interest as soon as you get it. So say you take that $5,000 out, unsubsidized your freshman year in college. When you graduate 4 years later, you might now owe $5,300. So it's charging you interest and you have to pay more than you actually borrowed from them while you're still in school. You can get gift aid, which includes grants and scholarships. Which is money given to pay for educational expenses that does not have to be repaid. So grants, you do not pay back. Scholarships, you do not pay back. A scholarship is a cash allowance awarded to a student to help pay for education. And then there are work study programs, which is money earned by you while you're in school. And that can go directly to your tuition or whatever you need. But it lets you get jobs on campus that you get them through the financial aid program that not everybody may not qualify for. All right, so let's just watch this one today.
Let's talk a little more about how to pay for college. You know that you have to fill out the FAFSA before you can be considered for any kind of college funding, so we won't get into the particulars of that again. But you can always go to the PF 101 conversation on that subject if you have questions. Okay, so let's break this down. Let's think about financial aid a little bit like a tree. Hopefully that'll help you get a good picture in your head of how all these things are related. There are three main branches in our financial aid tree: gift aid, work study, and loans. To start off with, we're just going to talk about gift aid, but don't worry, we'll be coming back around to work study and loans in a few minutes. So, what's gift aid? Well, once again, our financial aid tree branches out in two different directions. Gift aid can be in the form of either grants or scholarships. We'll start off talking about grants first. Grants are money that does not have to be paid back unless you withdraw from classes during the semester for which the grant was provided. The Pell Grant is probably the most common type of public grant. Pell Grants are funds made available by the federal government as part of your overall student aid package. Pell Grants are need-based, which means that they're available to low-income students and based on the amount of the student's expected family contribution, or EFC, the cost of the school, whether you attend full or part-time, and whether you attend for a full academic year. Remember, these grants must be paid back in full or in part if you withdraw from classes during the semester the grant was for. When you complete the FAFSA, you are automatically applying for a Pell Grant. Another type of federal grant is called the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. Whew, that's a mouthful. It's called the FSEOG for short, and it's an additional sum of money available only to those who have already qualified for the Pell Grant and demonstrate the most extreme financial need based on their EFC. Once again, the only way to apply for the FSEOG is to fill out the FAFSA. Let's go back to the scholarship branch of our tree now. Like grants, scholarships don't have to be repaid. Some are renewable, meaning that you continue to get the money each semester that you attend school, as long as you maintain the scholarship's required minimum GPA, while others are one-time awards. Scholarships typically either come from private sources or from the school you attend. Let's look at private scholarships first. These can come from corporations, community organizations, and nonprofits. Some of these are merit-based, which means that they're based on things like grades, volunteer work, and involvement in community and social organizations. Some of those private scholarships are need-based, which means that they're based strictly on the student's family income. Finally, some private scholarships are demographic-based, meaning that they're available to applicants in a particular category. This might be based on where you live or your ethnicity, whether or not you have children, or whether or not your parents went to college. Private scholarships are the only type of financial aid not covered by the FAFSA. You will need to search and apply for these on your own. There are several free online databases to help you find these private scholarships. Remember, there's no reason to pay for scholarship searches. There are plenty of free resources on the web for discovering them on your own. As for scholarships granted by your school, once again, the FAFSA is your starting point. When your school is determining your financial aid package, they'll look at your financial need, any grants or loans you may be eligible for, and then determine what they will offer in scholarship funding. Again, scholarships don't have to be paid back and are usually renewable as long as you continue to meet the eligibility requirements. That covers gift aid, which is all of the financial aid that under most circumstances need not be paid back. Work study is the most straightforward branch of our financial aid tree. Simply put, work study programs provide you with a job while you're enrolled in school. These programs are administered through your campus, and availability is determined by, you guessed it, the FAFSA. You're paid directly and may use work study money toward education-related expenses like tuition, fees, books, and room and board. All right, let's tackle loans. The loan branch on our financial aid tree splits in two smaller branches for public and private loans. Let's talk about public loans first, because they typically have much lower interest rates and much more favorable repayment terms than private loans. There are three main types of public financial aid loans. Your eligibility for these loans will be determined by completing the FAFSA. These loan types are Stafford, Perkins, and PLUS loans. First, let's take a look at the Stafford loan, which can be either subsidized or unsubsidized. The unsubsidized Stafford loan has a low variable interest rate and begins to accrue interest while you're in college. The interest that's accruing while you're going to school is usually just rolled into the principal of the loan, and the payments are deferred, which means that you don't have to start making payments as long as you're enrolled in school as at least a half-time student. There's a 6-month grace period after leaving school, after which loan repayment must begin. Subsidized loans are the same as the unsubsidized ones, but the government pays the interest that accrues while you're in school, instead of just having it rolled up into the principal of the loan. This, of course, means that you ultimately wind up paying less for your loan, since it's effectively not accruing any interest while you're in school. Subsidized loans, when they're available, are preferable to unsubsidized loans. In much the same way that the FSEOG that we discussed earlier is a grant for students with exceptional financial need, so too is our next type of loan. Eligibility for the Perkins loan is also determined by the FAFSA. The Perkins is the best college loan available in that it's completely subsidized. Again, meaning that no interest accrues while you're in school. It has a low fixed interest rate and a 10-year repayment period that begins 6 months after you leave school. The other type of financial aid loan available isn't a student loan at all. It's a loan that can be taken out by parents to help their children pay for college. These loans are called PLUS loans, and they're available to parents with an established history of good credit at a fixed interest rate. The maximum loan amount is determined by subtracting all other available financial aid, as determined by the school, from the total cost of attendance. The FAFSA is all you need to determine if you or your parents are eligible. Finally, as a last resort, there are private college loans available from traditional financial institutions like banks and credit unions. These loans typically have higher interest rates, shorter grace periods, origination fees, and may have penalties for prepayment of the loan. Some colleges have their own on-campus credit union that offers more favorable loan terms than larger banks or credit unions. There are several search engines out there specifically for private college loans. It's smart to do a lot of comparison shopping and make sure you know what you're signing up for ahead of time. Make sure you understand all fees, grace periods, and deferments, interest rates, and total loan costs, and options for consolidation after graduation. This sums up all of the various financial aid options that you have. Remember, it all begins with the FAFSA. You can use some terrific free search engines to find.
Okay. So as they were saying, it all starts with the FAFSA. So that's why I was asking if you already know about it. Most of you, looks like half didn't answer, so I'm going to assume not. But those are your three options: the work study, the loans, and gift aid, which can be a grant or a scholarship. But remember, as they were saying, if you leave school in the middle of a semester, you have to pay that money back. So if you drop out, then you pay it back. Otherwise, it's just free money to help you pay for college, if that's the option you guys are taking. All right. So your homework tonight, I don't remember, it's like 1 through 21, I do believe. Double check. And if you have questions, I'll stick around. Otherwise, you're free to go, and I will see you guys tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Bye, Ms. Rice.
Bye.